Hello and welcome to another special episode of the WTI Talks. And this time here we are today at the Embassy of Kazakhstan in Islamabad. And our guest is His Excellency Mr. Yerzhan Kistafin, the Ambassador of Republic of Kazakhstan to Pakistan. And we're going to explore the important role that this country ought to play in the changing world order. Thank you so much for your time today, His Excellency.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
His Excellency, our countries, not in their current form, the countries and cities have long existed and they played a very important role in the ancient Silk Roads. Do you think that, and recently there has been a lot of talks between the governments of developing sister city relationships on the both sides. Do you see a huge potential in that? And if yes, then what are the specific sectors that might be the most beneficiary of such a development?
Within the framework of our bilateral agenda, we are focused not only on developing cooperation between our two governments, but we are also focused on developing our cooperation at the regional level, at the level of the local authorities. In fact, what we are trying to do, we are trying to develop sister cities cooperation between, for example, our cultural capitals, namely Lahore and Turkestan. We are planning to develop interaction between our financial hubs, which are Karachi and Almaty. We are also planning to develop interaction between our textile centers, Faisalabad and Shymkent. Then something like 2 months ago, I visited Multan. We are also planning to develop cooperation between Multan and the city of Taraz, which is another ancient city, in Kazakhstan. So we believe that such kind of combination can help us to boost cooperation at the level of our regions. Between our business communities, between academia, for example, when it comes to Lahore and Turkestan, we also we want to develop cooperation between museums. I mean, it will help to activate different areas of mutual interest, different areas of cooperation, and finally it will boost and it will contribute to strengthening ties at the people-to-people level.
That is wonderful to hear. In the introduction, I used the word changing world order and bigger picture changes. And when you use these terms, China comes to mind as a country. So my question is about China, because it's in the Eastern Hemisphere, it's growing, its economic influence is growing, there's no doubt about it. Does Kazakhstan consider China, is it a friend, is it a foe, is it a threat, a competitor? Also, how does Kazakhstan stands to benefit from Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and CPEC? Do you think that there is also a great potential for Kazakhstan to benefit from these initiatives?
In fact, when it comes to One Belt, One Road Initiative, I must say that this initiative was announced by the President of China, His Excellency Xi Jinping, during his visit to Astana 10 years ago. He delivered a lecture at the Nazarbayev University, and during this lecture, he shared this idea to launch this mega project, One Belt, One Road Initiative, and it was made on purpose. In fact, Kazakhstan, our land, for centuries served as a bridge connecting East and West. Due to our geographical location, we are at the crossroad of civilizations. And nowadays, Kazakhstan is an integral part of One Belt, One Road Initiative. And about 70% of Chinese exports to the European countries goes through this route from the Western China to the Western Europe. And delivery time is 2 weeks in comparison to 40-50 days by sea. So Kazakhstan is already a part of this initiative. When it comes to China, I must say that we do not consider China as a competitor. We believe that regional cooperation is a backbone, and developing constructive, friendly, mutually beneficial relations with your immediate neighbors is a top priority for any country in the world. And with China, this is what we do. In fact, we are developing mutually beneficial cooperation. And I must say that nowadays we enjoy, I would say, relations of of a new type between Kazakhstan and China, because China understands the role of Kazakhstan in terms of developing
Yes.
infrastructure.
Yes.
And on the other hand, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. This is another part of One Belt One Road initiative. In May this year, in the Chinese city Xi'an, there was a summit, China Central Asia, and one of the main issues that was discussed dedicated to developing infrastructure, developing transport routes. And it was agreed that China, along with Central Asian countries, will be developing this kind of connectivity. So this is why we do not consider China as a kind of competitor. We believe that with support of our Chinese partners, taking into account their great expertise, we can bring cooperation in the region to a brand new level.
Wonderful. Building upon that, His Excellency, Khargos is poised to be one of the largest dry ports in the world, and I believe it stands to play an extremely important role in the global trade, at least in the landlocked trade moving forward. What do you see the potential of Khargos railways is, and what will be the implications for Kazakhstan and also as well as Pakistan or the neighboring countries?
In fact, our president several times he stressed that we need to develop our transit and export potential. And in his, again, the State of the Nation address, he mentioned that we need to be focused on developing two international transport corridors. The first one is so-called Trans-Caspian International Corridor, and this corridor connects China with European countries. Now what we're trying to do, we're trying to boost the capacity to increase the volume of freight that could be delivered through this international Caspian International Transport Corridor to the European countries and vice versa. Another very important route is so-called north-south. Through this international corridor, we are planning to develop connectivity with South Asia. And the thing is that Kazakhstan is the largest landlocked country in the world, as many people know. And in general, Central Asia is a landlocked region. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to transform landlocked country into land-linked country. And through, for example, developing connectivity with Pakistan and Iran, we can have access to the warm waters. Which is extremely important for us in terms of developing trade with foreign countries and in general with the international community. And this is in fact one of the top priorities for us when it comes to our bilateral agenda between Kazakhstan and Pakistan. We are focused very much on developing connectivity between our countries. And it will be beneficial not only for our two countries, but for the entire region, I mean Central Asia and South Asia. And through this international corridor, we can also connect continents. I mean big Eurasia with Africa and with Southeast Asia, and definitely it can significantly expand presence of different players in our market. And on the other hand, it will help us to get access. It will help us to enter African countries, Southeast Asia, which are most populous regions today.
Yes, and many authors such as Parag Khanna, Dr. Parag Khanna in his book Futurization, and Peter Frankopan in his book The Silk Roads and the New Silk Roads, they've spoken about the return of the Eurasian region. And while you were enlightening us with these recent developments, do you think, it just dawned upon in my head, do you think that such a possibility is quite likely, that we will see once again a highly connected and integrated Eurasian region in the near future?
Something like 3 or 4 weeks ago, in Dushanbe in Tajikistan, there was a fifth so-called consultative meeting of the leaders of Central Asian countries, 5 countries: Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. And the good news was that our Central Asian leaders, they also invited as a guest of honor President of Azerbaijan. And one of the main outcomes of this event was to sign the agreement on developing land routes. And this is, I think, a great evidence of what we are trying to develop in our region. We are trying to develop connectivity. Through connectivity, we can develop our bilateral trade, we can develop people-to-people ties, so on and so forth. So, the sky's the limit. And I think that, I agree with you that in the near future, probably, inshallah, we will be witnessing a great step forward in terms of developing regional cooperation. And I'm really happy to see that nowadays, what I see is that Central Asian leaders, they are willing to develop, relations with their immediate neighbors. And I believe that in this term, Central Asia has a very promising future.
In terms of moving towards another important aspect of the global economy and global politics these days, is energy. And Kazakhstan is, well equipped in every way to play its role in this regard. Kashagan field has been under development and in the news recently from quite time, but it hasn't yielded much of the results. Recently, there were also some environmental concerns regarding the development of the field. How do you see your country balancing both the concerns, the environmental concerns, but yet as the population grow, as their needs grow, they need more energy as well. So do you think there are other hindrances in the development of this important energy field?
In fact, our president stressed that we need to develop an environmentally friendly technologies. And we will be moving towards a neutral carbonization.
Okay.
And we are planning to develop such kind of technologies in order to to achieve this zero emissions goal. And from the very beginning, Kazakhstan was in favor of the COP, of this agenda. And we do understand that developing our energy sector, we should also care about our environment, about nature. And this is why we are trying to keep the right balance. On the one hand, we want to boost our energy sector. On the other hand, we do not want to harm our environment, because we do understand that ecological issues, they can influence negatively our own citizens. So this is why we were trying to find the right balance. And the government will be focused not only on developing energy sector, but also on developing so-called green solutions.
Moving forward and just relating to this, Kazakhstan, as it is the 9th largest country in terms of area in the world, do you think this goes very well in your favor in terms of yielding solar energy? What about, have the country considered its potential of solar energy and any proposed collaborations in this regard with Pakistan as well in the future?
This is another very important area that we are focused on, our government. We are developing renewable, so-called renewable sources of energy, not only solar energy, but also wind energy as well.
Okay.
And we are building wind turbines in Kazakhstan, solar panels. And the idea is to increase the share of the renewables in Kazakhstan, and we will be doing this. And I think that this is another area that could be of mutual interest for Kazakhstan and Pakistan. And again, we can share experience, we can learn from each other in terms of developing this very important area.
Perfect, and it would be beneficial for both of the countries doing so, and for the population as well. Moving forward, keeping the theme of climate change here, the world is global warming, ice is melting. What this is doing is, apart from raising temperatures and calls for concerns of ecological nature, it is also changing the geopolitical spectrum of the world. If we look at the map, we see that during the summers, or the ice, the Arctic ice or all these North Poles, the ice was not available during summers. But now, due to global warming, that passage, which is one of them, if I'm not mistaken, is the North Sea route. The other one is Northwest Passage. They're kind of being available throughout the year. So instead of taking the landlocked route, China in the future or other countries, Russia might opt to take the shorter version of this and opt for these both passages. Do you think that this very phenomenon of melting ices and ice sheets and new routes springing up, do you think this can go against the role of Kazakhstan as a very important transit country in the global trade?
I don't think so. I do believe that nowadays many countries, they finally understood that diversification is the main principle that we should implement. And apart from the sea routes, we should also develop land routes. And because several times it was very clear that the sea routes are not always safe and are not always available. So developing this, for example, by our Chinese colleagues, developing One Belt, One Road initiative is another evidence. They have access to their own waters, but apart from this, they are also developing land routes. It shows that they do understand that they have to diversify routes, and they should have as many options as they can in terms of bringing their goods to the markets which are interested in the Chinese products. And I believe that other countries should implement the same approach.
Very well said. In terms of the changes, there has been another important change in the world. Due to the Russia-Ukrainian war, a lot of countries have been facing a lot of diplomatic challenges, I would say. In that regard, and Kazakhstan and Russia shares a rich history of cooperation in economics and diplomacy and otherwise as well. Moving forward, do you think that this new change in the geopolitical spectrum can pose any challenge for you, Kazakhstan, and in its cooperation with Russia?
Our president, as well as Central Asian leaders, they recently visited Berlin. In Berlin, they had Germany Central Asia Summit, and our president was asked about relations with Russia. And he said that, with Russia, we have strategic partnership, we are allies, we are founding members of the Eurasian Economic Union. And I always give one example. Kazakhstan and Russia share the longest land border in the world.
Yes.
And the length of this land border is equal to the distance between London and New York.
Wow.
It is 7,600 kilometers long. So can you imagine?
Yeah.
So from the very beginning, our country was in favor of developing so-called multi-vectoral foreign policy. When we develop friendly relations with all the countries in the world, and nowadays, alhamdulillah, I'm really glad to see that Kazakhstan doesn't have any, problems, conflicts with any other country in the world, including Russia.
Yeah.
It is not only about Russia. It is not only about any other particular country. It is our general approach.
Yes.
And this is what we're trying to deliver, this message, that we are developing good, friendly relations with other countries in the world, including the Russian Federation. And with Russia today, we have good relations. But despite our good relations with Russia, we do not support this idea of conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And again, Kazakhstan was clear from the very beginning that we are not going to, to support this invasion. And we are in favor of the peaceful diplomatic solution. We are always in favor of a dialogue.
Yes.
A dialogue is the only way towards, a peaceful coexistence.
Certainly.
It doesn't matter what kind of war, we unfortunately we witness today in the world. Any war always ends up with negotiations, with a dialogue. So we can start from the very beginning with the dialogue.
Very well said.
And we were trying to convince our partners that, we should sit at the table and discuss and to find a compromise. But unfortunately, we have what we have.
Hopefully, but things will, saner heads will prevail. And one of the things that you mentioned very rightly is the healthy trend growing in the world that other countries have started to have a good say in their foreign policy. And you can have a pronged foreign policy, and I think it's a very healthy trend, especially for other countries, the developing countries. And coming back to Pakistan, recently there has been a lot of talks, and there has been some healthy negotiations going on between both sides. I remember that there has been a joint business council set up. There is also the Transit and Trade Agreement, the TTA. Just how do you see its potential, and any, once again, specific sectors that the industrialists here or there are focusing or should focus on?
In general, I always say that when it comes to our bilateral relations, we have to address two main issues. The first one is lack of connectivity.
Okay.
But nowadays, I believe that we are on the right track. On the 8th of July, we finally launched direct flights from Lahore to Almaty. It is 2 hours, 10 minutes.
Wonderful.
So it shows that it's not that far, and the distance is almost equal between Islamabad and Karachi. Now what we are trying to develop, as I said, we are developing connectivity between Kazakhstan and Pakistan, and we see that we have a number of options. The Karakorum Highway, the Trans-Afghan route, Trans-Caspian route, so on and so forth. So in fact, 3 years ago, our governments decided to establish 3 joint working groups. One of them is dedicated to the transport and regional connectivity. And we expect in November, inshallah, the Minister of Transport of Kazakhstan to visit your beautiful country.
Inshallah.
We are planning to arrange his trips to Gwadar, to Karachi, to show him the infrastructure that you have in your seaports. Another issue that we need to address is lack of information. And I must say that lack of information and lack of connectivity are closely interrelated. People know little about each other just because we are not connected.
Yes.
Before this direct flight, we used to travel to Kazakhstan via Istanbul or Dubai. And only stopover is more than 10 hours.
Okay.
While the direct flight is 2 hours. So can you imagine?
Wow.
So for business people, it's a wasting of time.
Perfect.
And nowadays, what we're trying to do, we are trying to fill the gap and to invite people on regular basis, business community, academia. For example, recently, one of the greatest historians from Kazakhstan visited Pakistan. We arranged his meetings at the Qaid Azam University, University of Punjab, National Beacon House University. And what we're trying to do, we're trying to develop cooperation between our academia, between our experts, and hopefully one day they will launch joint research of our common history.
Hopefully.
So this is what we do. And another very important part in this term, I must say that it is about you, my dear friend. I mean, media community. We should develop cooperation between our media communities.
Yes.
It will help, a lot in terms of, trying to deliver this message of friendship, of good relations to the millions of people. Through collaboration between our media community. Hopefully, by the end of this year, we will finalize our talks on the transit trade agreement. And we are also planning to sign a number of MOUs between relevant authorities, in particular on cooperation in tourism, sports, culture, media. So we are trying to activate each and every sector which could be mutually beneficial in terms of developing cooperation between our countries.
That sounds all very promising and great, and I would certainly be taking that flight 2 hours. That
You're more
would be
than
wonderful.
welcome.
Yes, and before we wrap up, I always ask this question on a lighter note. During your stay here, up until now, what has been your most favorite place to visit in Pakistan, and why?
Certainly Lahore and of course Gilgit-Baltistan.
Okay. Yeah. And in terms of food, because Pakistan has a very rich culinary palate, and any specific cuisine to Pakistan that you enjoy the most eating?
So even even when it comes to cuisine, we have a lot of commonalities.
In common, yes.
For example, plow.
Yes.
Samosa. Kebab.
Yes.
Naan.
Yes.
So on and so forth. We have same tea tradition.
We do.
We drink tea with milk.
Yes.
Pakistani tea,
yes.
as we call it.
Okay.
Mixed tea. So my personal selection would be, of course, chicken biryani, of course.
Okay.
Plow and samosa.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, His Excellency, for your time.
Thank you for coming.
I really enjoyed the discussion, and it was also very enlightening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency.